welcome to another episode of SocialEyes. We're welcoming you a special guest, our producer, and the guy behind the scenes, Producer Ton. Welcome to SocialEyes. Thanks for hanging out on the black couch with us, Carrington. We are on chapter number 21 of the book, A Boy Called Christmas.
How many more chapters do you have?
There's about 31 chapters, so we have, I think, 10 more chapters. That's 31 or 32 chapters. They actually don't number the chapters.
11 more.
So there's 10 or 11 more chapters left. So we're on chapter 21, and this chapter is called The Search. So we now know, if you haven't watched it, make sure you go back and watch the last chapter. Nicholas is able to escape the prison tower with Blitzen, and he's now discovered his magic, his power of believing in the fact that now he can float and fly. So we have that, and Vaudal has chased them, and the elf guards have chased them, and Donner is Vaudal's reindeer that flies, and Blitzen is the biggest of them all, and yeah, so that's where we're at. So we are on The Search, chapter 21. Who's reading first, Carrington? Rock, paper, scissors. Ready? Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Oh yeah, slice you up. It's me first. All right, The Search. They flew through the blistery air over forests full of snow-covered spruce trees and icy lakes. I can imagine that. They're just flying and the scenery is just going to be like this nice Finland background with ocean and mountain and forest and snow-covered everywhere. A landscape of white land and silver water. There was no sign of human life, no sign of Christmas Eve excitement. From up high, the land looked as still and flat as a map. They were traveling so fast that what would have taken them all day by land took them only minutes. The cold wind was strong, but Nicholas hardly felt it. Indeed, since he'd been Drimwit, he had barely noticed the cold. No, that wasn't quite true. He had been aware of the cold, but it hadn't bothered him. It just was. Nicholas felt such relief that he had escaped, and at the possibility that his father was alive. Such delight and wonder that he could make magic that he suddenly, right there, half a mile above the lake, let out the biggest laugh of his life. It was a laugh that came from deep inside.
High five.
Right.
His belly less of ha 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 and more of ho ho ho. The kind of jolly laugh his mother used to have. He leaned forward and wrapped his arms around Blitzen. "You are a true friend," he told him, "and I'm sorry about what happened to your antler." Blitzen gave a quick raise of his head, as if to say that's all right, and galloped on. They were headed directly south, following the only road, the most obvious route towards home. Nicholas wondered if his father was already there, perhaps back in the forest chopping wood. By mid-morning, a gray mist had settled around them, and doubt began to creep into his head. What if Nicola's father had kidnapped little Kip? He dismissed the thought. No, your papa would never do something like that. That would be impossible, wouldn't it? With a heavy heart, Nicholas released what he had to do before he can return home. He had to find little Kip. He had to find the truth. He had to prove to the elves that his father was a good man. There must be some explanation.
All right, show the camera this picture. Ooh, that's the foresty background with the silver lake and the trees snow-covered. Ooh, very beautiful. High five. Okay. Little Kip had probably just run away from home, just as Nicholas had. All he needed to do was find the elf boy, and everything would become clear. So they flew on and on and on. The reindeer swooped low above forests and high over fields and the broad clay plains that seemed to stretch towards infinity, in the hope they might see little Kip. The only thing they didn't do was fly directly over towns because Nicholas didn't know how people might react to seeing a boy on a reindeer flying over their heads. But sometimes they did see people, which made Blitzen happy. You see, the other thing Nicholas had realized about Blitzen was that he had a sense of humor. And the thing he found really funny was weeing on people. Did you get it? He likes to wee on people as he's flying around. That means peeing. He'd hold it in for as long as possible, and then when he saw someone far below, he'd just, wee. And the people in question would just think it was raining. That's not very nice Christmas present, Blitzen, Nicholas said, but he couldn't help laugh. On and on they traveled, fast and slow, and low and high, north and east, and south and west. But without success, Nicholas felt increasingly desperate. Maybe he should just go home after all. He was beginning to feel so tired, and he knew Blitzen must be even more so. It had started snowing again. "Come on," said Nicholas. "We need to rest for the night." He had spotted the forest of pine trees immediately to the west. "Let's land over there and find some shelter." So Blitzen, ever responsive to Nicholas's commands, angled westward and flew lower and lower, weaving between the snow-capped pine trees until he saw a break in the branches just beyond a ravine. "This is going to be a strange Christmas," said Nicholas. They settled amid the tall looming trees beneath a canopy of branches. Nicholas and Blitzen lay back to back, and just as Nicholas was starting to drift into the dreamless sleep, he heard something. A crack of a twig. Voices. Men's voices. Nicholas sat bolt upright and listened hard. It was pitch black now, but the man speaking in a slow, strong voice seemed familiar. Nicholas gasped.
Is it the hunter?
It's the hunter. It's his dad, I think. It was the voice of a man who had visited his father. It was Anders the hunter. "Blitzen," Nicholas whispered. "I think it's them. Wait there." And Nicholas got to his feet and tiptoed carefully over the dry ground. He saw a golden orange glow. It grew brighter, a campfire. Shadows were moving like dark ghosts. As he got closer, he could see a group of large, huddled silhouettes sitting around the fire talking. Their voices were more distinct now. "We're only days away from Turku," said one. "We'll be there by New Year." "A week away until we give our little present to the king," said another. "I thought we were going home first," said a voice he knew better than any voice in the world. The sound of it caused Nicholas's heart to miss a beat. Fear and love flooded through him. He was about to shout, "Papa!" but something stopped him and simply waited, quiet in the stillness of the night. "No, we promised the king has... We promised... No, hold on. No, we promised. The king has to have it before New Year." Nicholas could hardly breathe. His heart was thumping in his chest. But he knew he must try to stay calm. Be the forest.
Well, I promised my son I would be home by now. It depends which promise you want to keep. The one to the king or the one to your son. The sound of laughter filled the forest, echoing off the trees, so it felt like it was coming from everywhere. Birds flapped away from the branches, squawking in fear. "You better be quiet," one of the men said, "or we'll take him." "Oh," said another, "don't worry about it. It'll sleep soundly." Nicholas' stomach felt too light, as if he was falling. He thought he was going to be sick or collapse. What does it matter, said Anders. He's in the cage. It's not as if he can go anywhere. It was true. Nicholas strained his eyes to see beyond the trees. There, on the other side of the camp of the fire, a man. It was a strange box-shaped thing. He couldn't quite see the elf boy, but he knew that he was there. The man carried on talking. Just keep thinking of the money, Joe. You'd never have to worry about Christmas again. All that money. Picture, picture, picture.
Ooh, is that the sleigh? Is that Christmas's sleigh? Oh, what's in the hills? Is that the men? Ooh, that's cool. That's cool.
I want to see on this.
I know, I just want to see. So we got the men here. The arrows. The sleigh. Oh, that's Kip in there. See, there's Kip. Little Kip. They kidnapped little Kip. I can't believe it. I bet you Nicholas's dad didn't want to be a part of the kidnapping. They were bad men. Anders is a bad man. Is that Anders? That might
Those
be
are Anders.
Is this Nicholas's dad?
No, I don't
Joel?
think so.
Doesn't look like Joel. That kind of looks like Joel. That's Anders. That's Anders. Yeah. Okay.
What would you do with it? What would you buy for Christmas? I'll buy a farm. I'll just look at it, said another one, who was called Adu. Nicholas didn't know that yet. Adu had a very large head with a very small brain inside. He had a wild hair and a wild beard, which made him look like someone peeping through a bush. And after I looked at it, I'd buy a toilet. A toilet? What's a toilet? It's a new invention. I heard about it. The king's got one. It's a magic chamber pot with the bowls like mine. It's got to be a really good investment. And I'd buy a really nice candle. I like candles. I'd buy a big red candle. The men fell to murmuring among themselves. Then Nicholas took his chance. Crouching on his hands and knees, he crept slowly forward, dodging pine cones, breathing slowly as he weaved through the forest, always keeping a safe distance from the men. Eventually he reached the cage. It was made of wood and tied firmly with a rope to the solid timber of sleigh. And painted sleigh. The sleigh engraved with the word Christmas. His sleigh inside the cage curled up, and inside was an elf boy.
High five. Ooh. He wore the same kind of deep green tunic and looked roughly the same age as little Noosh. He had brown, very straight hair and large ears, even for an elf, but a tiny nose. And though his far-apart eyes were closed, he had a downturned mouth, and his face was creased with worry. Nicholas remembered his own brief but horrible time as a prisoner. He stood there wondering what he could do. There was no path, just trees to one side, and the clearing to the other. He was trembling with fear, but he knew he must wait for his father and the other men to fall asleep. Little Kip opened his eyes and stared straight at Nicholas. For a moment it looked as if he was going to scream. "Shh," Nicholas said softly, with his finger on his lips. "I'm here to help you." Ooh, look at him. He's so cute. Oh my goodness, look at him. That's little Kip, the kidnapped boy.
Kidnapped? What?
Little Kip. He was kidnapped. Little Kip was still a very young elf, and although he didn't know Nicholas was skilled at spotting goodness inside someone and could see the kindness in Nicholas's eyes, he seemed to understand. "I'm scared," said the elf in elf, but Nicholas understood. "It's all right." "Is it?" "Well, no, not right now, but it will be." But then a fierce, rough voice seemed to come out of nowhere. Happy Christmas. Nicholas turned around and saw one of the men, a tall, skinny man with a crooked face, wearing a woolen hat with flaps over his eyes. He was pointing an arrow and crossbow at him. Who are you? Tell me, are you dead? Whoa. So he just got discovered by one of the men, one of the guys. But I wonder why he asked him, are you, or you're, oh no, he said, sorry, I said that wrong. He said at the end, he said, who are you? Tell me, or you're dead. I thought he said, are you dead? Or you're dead. So he was pointing an arrow at him, he's going to kill him, or else if he doesn't tell him who he is. That was an interesting one. So they tried to find shelter and discovered the men who had kidnapped little Kip. And now he is... but you know what's going to happen. I'm going to predict this. I don't know, but I'm going to predict Blitzen destroys that guy. Just comes up behind him and smashes him. That guy goes flying. That's my prediction. What's your prediction? Do you... how do you think Nicholas gets away from the guy with the crossbow?
Just flies away.
You think he flies away?
No. Blitzen or the other one?
Blitzen or Kip? Little Kip? No, Little Kip's trapped in a cage.
No. Blitzen
Nicholas?
comes and takes him and flies out.
Possibly.
And then later they just get...
I think because it's been like kind of violent, I think Blitzen just destroys him or pees on him, wheeze on him. That's the funniest part of this book, where Blitzen likes to wee on the people down below when he's flying over them. All right, that's it for chapter number 21.
Yes.